Okay. Hello, everyone. This is a Sunday roundtable where we explore issues impacting the Jamaican people, and the most recent one, which is I think is of concern, is the local government election because there's still some amount of confusion as to who win, who lost, and what is the balance of power. So I invite Paul Burke to join the discussion. Okay. So I'm looking forward to a very informative discussion. I'm also inviting the listeners to take part in this conversation. If you have questions for Paul Burke, then post it in the chat and we try to get some answers. Paul, you're with me is Patrick McCarthy. You met Patrick before. You know Laf Crawford and of course John Norton. This is the panel
Good
for
afternoon, all. Good afternoon, all.
okay.
Big up, big up, man.
Can barely hear you though.
I don't know why, but
Yeah,
good
I
afternoon,
hear you, but
everybody.
no, it must be when you were sort of
Who
lean back.
relax? Yeah. Okay.
Welcome, Paul.
I will
Welcome.
move forward a little bit.
Okay. Paul, the local government come and gone. PMP won the popular votes, but they lost the local government election, according to some people in Jamaica. I'm not sure if they are right or if they are incorrect. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that you can clarify with us what is the final result. And as a member of the PMP, you could give us your insight as to what was it a progress for the PMP or a setback, given the campaign that they launched for 2 years, PMP out on the road. That is the argument. The question,
Okay, so
I think the question more than anything is Mark Golden. Did he make an advance, consolidate his leadership in the People's National Party? What the hell is really going on?
so good afternoon to you and your viewers. Obviously, the People's National Party would have wanted to have won outrightly. So, as you know, in 2016, the local government reform finally took place with the 3 strategic laws, a reform that had been discussed for years and years and not happening outside of the creation of the Portmore municipality. So we have, in that law, we have municipal corporations, which you would know as your former parish councils. But it also speaks to city municipalities, which we only have one, and we speak to town municipalities, which we don't have any. Linstead was slated, I believe, to have been the first town municipality, followed by Old Harbour. But right now, we have 2 categories out of the 3 permissible categories under the law. So Portmore is a city municipality, which is contested for, and whichever party has the majority of representatives in Portmore wins the corporation. But there's also a separate election for mayor. So you can win the corporation in Portmore and not necessarily have the mayor. And we have had one situation like that in the past.
Paul, just 1 second. You went out for a while, so we missed some of what you had to say.
Okay.
You can just back up a bit. You started in terms of the first town municipality of Linstead, and that's after that
No.
you went out.
No, it was envisaged that at the time that Linstead, followed by Old Harbour, would have been the first town municipalities. That never happened. So although the law allows for 3 categories of municipalities, the municipal corporation, the former parish council, the municipality of cities, Portmore is the first and only one, and the municipality of towns, which never happened. So we have 2 categories of municipalities. In terms of wins, the JLP won 6 and the PNP won 5. The one that is considered the greatest prize is the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation involved in the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew, amalgamated. Now there is a law, ROPA, as to how you break that tie and who should lead that corporation. And that has been determined in all the instances where there have been ties, that the party that has the greatest majority of votes will elect the mayor, and the party with the second less will elect the deputy mayor. So if you come down now to how many corporations the JLP is leading, it is 6. How many corporations the PNP is leading, it is 6. Right? So that has been fairly firmly established. Now it's how you want to interpret it. All of you watch football. You know at the end of the day, the league is not determined by who win a match, but who accumulates the most points. So you can actually lose a match to the team and you still come first, the team that is second, because you've accumulated more points. In the case of the Kingston and St. Andrew, the PNP was about 16,000 more votes than the Jamaica Labour Party. Now, the final magisterial recount took place yesterday, and the PNP won back the Kintyre division by 30 votes. So the swearing in of the mayor, Andrew Swaby, will take place on Tuesday. It will be structurally a shared leadership, which is how leadership should go, whether structurally or politically. But in this case, the JLP will have the deputy mayor. But the tiebreaker will always be with the mayor, because the mayor has a casting vote. So if there was a vote in the chamber of 2020, the mayor as chairman of the council has the casting vote. So that is how it operates. Now, moving on, politically, the PNP would have won on the other 2 counts. There are 228 municipal divisions in Jamaica and 1 elected mayor. So the PNP would have won the 1 elected mayor for Portmore. The PNP would have won the majority of municipal divisions, moving from 98 to 115, meaning that the JLP won 113. They lost 17 divisions to the PNP, or if you want to, the PNP won 17 divisions from the JLP. The PNP lost none of its councils to the JLP, but the JLP lost St. Mary to the People's National Party. And the PNP had 20,000 plus more votes than the JLP in total. When you total all the votes, the PNP would have had 20,000, little bit plus, more than the JLP. So when you look at the total picture, how many corporations both parties lead? 6-6. How many divisions? Who won more divisions? The PNP. Who won the majority vote? The PNP. Who won the 1 elected mayoral position? The PNP. So you can do your analysis however you want to and come to your conclusion. the conclusion of the People's National Party, with all the resources the government spent, with all the resources the Jamaica Labour Party had at its disposal, the PNP won the majority of divisions, won the majority of votes, and tied with the municipal corporations, and won the Portmore mayorship. So you can look at that in context and decide what is the final outcome. And that's it in a nutshell.
Welcome, Rattigan. Question for Mr. Burke?
Yeah, I want to start with looking at what you just explained, Paul. And I'm glad that is a person like you right here, because you I have confidence can best explain this. The first thing is that we talk about popular vote, and we talk about number of municipalities that determine the outcome of the election. Where does the popular votes sit in terms of municipalities? Is it a matter of the popular votes counted within each municipality, or is it a matter of the popular votes overall, and there's another factor that determines the victor of the municipality?
Well, the victor is left because there's nothing in the law that says one wins because of this. I am saying to you that the popular vote does not determine who wins the corporation. In 2020, the PNP still had the popular vote in the KSAMC by over 15,000, about 12,000 if I remember. But eventually, the PNP lost the Raytown division by 1 vote. So the Raytown division, which was a tiebreaker, was awarded to the Jamaica Labour Party, making them win 21 divisions in the KSAMC, and the PNP winning 19. So in that case, the popular vote was not a factor. The popular vote is only a factor in those parishes where there can be a tie. And in every other parish, unless an independent wins, it is only the KSAMC, St. Thomas that has 10, Clarendon that has 22, all the other parishes, to the best of my memory, have an odd number. So Portland has 9. St. Anne has 14, I believe. St. James 17. Hanover 7. Oh, Westmoreland has 14. So you could have technically a tie in Westmoreland. But most of the parishes have an odd number. So unless an independent wins or independents win, it is normally the PNP or JLP wins. Now, this was a very close election. So there was a lot of anxiety to find out who eventually won St. Thomas, because there's a magisterial recount. And the magisterial recount was in favor of the Jamaica Labour Party, which gave them 6-4. The PNP lost the Landry division by under 10 votes. So that was awarded to the parish corporation, which was awarded to the JLP. The PNP lost Annan Town. So it made the JLP have 13-11 and was awarded to them. And those were the other 2 in which there was contention. The time to count was not unusual, right? It normally, you have more candidates in a local government elections. So it's not 63 candidates you're counting for. And you're also counting for independent candidates. You have 228 divisions. So naturally, even though less people may vote, you have to go through the process of counting each and every vote, counting how much unused votes, how much spoiled votes, how much rejected votes, and all that has to be recorded on a particular form and signed up. So it is a time-consuming process to complete the count for the local government election.
But more directly to the point of who elects the municipalities, right? If it's not about popular vote, is it a matter of delegates that determine
Number of divisions you win, I think it is.
No, in
Also.
remember, Patrick, and I know you have been away for a little while, there is always a voters list for every single division in which there is renewal every 6 months. That means people coming of age at 18 can come on. People who have changed their mind and want to vote can come on. People who have changed their address can come on. In each division, the majority who wins, the majority of voters determine the outcome of a division. So it is done by the majority in each. So in all 40 divisions in Kingston and St. Andrew, the KSAMC, which is the candidate who got the most votes that was awarded the division. So in 20 divisions, the JLP candidate got the most votes. And in 20 divisions, the PNP candidate got the most votes. It's just that the PNP majorities were bigger. The winning majorities of the PNP candidates were on an average much bigger than the majority that JLP candidates won by. And that is why the KSAMC, without any contention, has gone to the People's National Party.
So the follow-up question would be, and just bear with me a moment. I get you clearly now in terms of the divisions and so on. But what percentage of the electorate actually voted?
Okay, so in 2020, it was 30 point something. In this election, and the final figures are not finished, is 29. The electorate, you have to understand, is everybody on the voters list, including people who are abroad. Because I have many friends who are abroad. 1 or 2 came back to vote, including people who have died. Because you can't just take somebody off the voters list. Because there are many people. I know 4 Paul Burkes in Jamaica, of which I am one. Right? So if Paul Burke dies, somebody can't just go and say Paul Burke dead and take him off the voters list. There's a process. They have to look at the age, the RGD, and that can take a year or 2. Notwithstanding that, the EOJ should have done from 2014 a re-verification process. Some people estimate that you have as much or more as 500,000 Jamaicans either not living here or have passed on who are on the list. Now, let me make something clear to you. Even if you go abroad and you are Jamaican and you have a plan to return, your name cannot just be removed off the list like that. When I moved in to a house years ago on Gallery Way, this is about 2002, 2004, 2005. I saw on the voters list a set of names of people who used to live there. Their names are still, after 20 years, still on the voters list for the address that I lived at Gallery. Their names are still on that voters list for that very same address. So the list has to be cleaned up. But you cannot remove a Jamaican from the list outside of a re-verification process, where you say you have 6 months to re-verify, and if you don't re-verify this time, you have another 6 months, and it goes on, you come back, show an address. And I can tell you, in my own group of political group, I have 11 members who live abroad. In my group, PNP group that I belong to, I have 11 members that live abroad. None of them came back to vote. So we have that problem, and it affects the JLP, PNP. When we did our walking on through the communities. And I personally, for the first time in years, went back out and canvassed. Johnson Avenue in Rollington Town, Oliver Road, up in Waurika Hills, Wareham Road, Tiverton Road, Homestead Road. The amount of people that no longer live at the address, you knock at people's houses, and you say, hi, Mr. McCarthy, and we talk to you, and we say, oh, we see so-and-so also living there. And so that person never lived here from time I hear. Then people don't live here again. That man gone abroad, that one dead, we don't know where to find that one. And it is not a small number. But having said that, many Jamaicans still, and people tell me this, I won't deny it, that they're not seeing a better under PNP or JLP. Some people say they're only coming out to vote when it is to change a government. People told us that too, right? But a number of people, and we try to convince some, we won some over, and we fail to win some others over in speaking to them. They're not seeing a reason why they should vote. Look at the state of them road, this, that. Some of these things have nothing to do with local government, but they still hold elected representatives responsible. And even though the PNP has been out of office for 8 years, many of them still hold their PNP representatives responsible. Case in example, we have some roads in Rollington Town that were not fixed for 15 years. So we can't say to people, why? Because JLP in office. These roads have not been fixed. But the truth is, the money the councillor gets, and we try to explain to people when you can only fix 2 roads in a community. Because in Norman Gardens, where I'm familiar with, you have Bayshore, which is on a hill, and every rain comes, it's a problem. You really need to put in the money to put in the drains, find the money to put in the drains. But that's another major cost. So what you do is patch roads, short-term solution. We have the Rockford side, we have the Renaclod side, we have the Burke community, we have the Rollington Town side. When you give a councillor $6 million a year to fix roads, that is 2 or 3 roads, when literally you have 70 or 80 roads in Norman Gardens. So we have a real challenge with resources and people feeling that their lives and their communities are not being significantly improved.
I want to come back to you, that question and that, but I will allow, others to jump in with that question. But I really want to come back to you with a question pertaining to the policies.
What's the general attitude of the party to this election? Does the party see this as underperformance, or the party is satisfied with its performance in this election?
Under the circumstances, knowing the resources, and this is not political propaganda, when we had the last local government election, the PNP had 29 MPs. Let me tell you this time you're down to 14. And most of the government resources are no longer being channeled through the municipal corporations. They are quite cleverly, politically, understandably, channeling the resources through the MPs. And this has come shortly after a massive Christmas expenditure program, right? And a government in office. And this was shown as PNP, so it's not a complaint. A government in office is always able to attract more contributions from individuals, right? So you can't compete in when you go and look for resources. But there is a bigger problem. There is a bigger problem that I will tell you, many grassroots candidates, somebody who is a teacher, somebody who is a nurse, would have it difficult to win a marginal division without having a big, powerful sponsor. The contradiction is Kintyre, which showed in that case that people power beat money power. But unless you put in a political organization, have a candidate that really is among the people, for the people, with the people, money power is going to trump people power, in my view, in most instances. The candidate who has the most money. John Anderson did a poll in 2016, can be found, where in the younger demographics, many people said they would sell their vote. Blatantly, openly, unapologetically. Right? And we know it is happening. Now, I belong to old school. I've heard the discussion. We can't buy people vote. I just can't do it. Right? I can reason with a man. I can help a man who is legitimate and have the resources, but it's not to vote. We can't go to somebody and say, I pay you to vote PNP. Unfortunately, there are some in my party who have succumbed to that practice, right? And they're a minority, but it happens because they feel it's the only way to deal with what the JLP is doing. So when bogus voting was going on, PNP will say, well, if we're not doing JLP, I will do it. And JLP will say, if we're not doing PNP, I will do it. But I will tell you honestly and truthfully, it's a central part of the JLP's organization and mobilization strategy to give inducements for votes. And I'm not saying that individuals in the PNP are not guilty, but it's not part of the PNP's central strategy. It is not part of a program by the leadership of the PNP, but it is a major problem facing democracy in both local and central government elections.
John.
Yes, I'm going back to something you said earlier. When you were here last, I didn't hear the whole presentation. I came late. But one of the things that I am particularly interested in is the mood of the people. So notwithstanding all the inefficiencies of the vote count, would you say that the 29% turnout, which I understood you to be the total percent of those who can vote, and it compared, you said 30% in the last local government, how does that rank overall in local government turnout? Isn't that about what the local government turnout is, or is it lower, higher? And secondly, what is the general turnout for the general election comparably?
All right, so the last general election, 2020, was an anomaly. So we don't use that as figures. But local government election has always been a lower turnout than a general election for obvious reasons.
Right. Yes.
One is changing a government. There's more vigorous campaign, etc., etc. So,
Paul, hold a minute. John, can you fix your camera? We're not seeing you.
Well, you don't need to say, man.
Yeah, man.
But what I will say, still too large a number of Jamaicans were disinterested. That is a fact. Still too large, a significant chunk of Jamaicans had no interest in participating, were not interested. Local government elections is mainly the base of both parties. My own opinion, without any scientific, PNP was able to energize its base fully and totally, right? I don't think we did enough to win over the undecided voter. I believe we won more of that group who were originally undecided towards the PNP. I also believe that Prime Minister Andrew Holness did a lot to neutralize the undecided voters. In the 3 weeks he made 1 or 2 mega promises every single day, right? And these were extensively carried in mainstream media, on social media. How much houses were built, how much jobs were to be provided, which markets were to be repaired, how many roads were repaired, who will get water. And he was very effective. And my own view, a lot of people who would have been dissatisfied and who might have come out, the undecided voter who was dissatisfied, he provided some hope. And they stayed home rather than coming out and voting for the PNP. But of that block of non-committed party voter, the PNP would have won the larger slice, but not convincing enough. Because had the PNP won that block convincingly enough, they would have won far more corporations in Jamaica, and there'd be no discussion or debate as to who won the local government elections.
Ratigan, let's have a question for Brother Paul.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Burke. Good evening, panelists. Good evening.
Ratigan, you can call me Paul, you know. You'd have to go with the mister, you know.
No, respect is due. So unless you tell me, you say, well, you know, I can't call you Paul, I can't do that, you know. Yeah, good evening, listening, viewing audience. You know, it shouldn't be that difficult to determine a winner, because it's the party with the most votes, right, or the most division wins. But in this election, I found it to be rather strange, because in a general election, it's 63. So you know, once the votes are counted, you know exactly who's who's the winner. In this case, though, what I saw the JLP claiming the win, but the PNP celebrating the win. And for much of my peers who were confused, we were like, who won? And it dawned on me that, wait a minute, a local election is not necessarily about winning. It's about governance. It's about who going to deal with the local politics, as opposed to a general election where you're talking about leadership now. And based on everything that I've seen and what you've said, it would seem to suggest to me that we need to revamp the system. We need to look at it, because the system that we have, I don't think it has been amended for quite some time, and I think there's much confusion. And also, you mentioned ROPA, about people who you live overseas and you can come and vote, and then you mentioned about the list taking some time to adjust to the realities on the ground, because people die, people move, and somehow it's not updated. And then I looked at the ROPA, I have it up right now, and Section 5 and Section 5 subsection 2 and 2A and Schedule 8, if you read those two, they give the impression that you must be, and they use the term ordinarily resident, right? Because otherwise they said you can't vote. Now, Section 5 2A refers to a vote.
No, I want to correct you. One moment. You can vote once you're on the list, but you should not be on the list if you are not ordinary resident in Jamaica. But there has been no final determination as to what ordinary, is it 6 months a year? Is it 7 months a year? Is it visits to Jamaica? What makes you ordinary? If I've, in the last 5 years, if I've spent 3 years in Jamaica, but been out of Jamaica for 2 years, how do you determine how I'm ordinary resident? And that was discussed at the ECJ at length when we were to do the re-verification process. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to correct that.
No. That's fine. You said that if you're on the list, you can vote. Well, ROPA Section 5, subsection 2 says that, and I can read it. It says, every person shall be entitled to vote at an election of a member of the House of Representatives for any constituency if his name appears upon the official list. And then it goes on to say, unless. So if your name appears on the list, you can vote. Unless, and here's the unless you cease to be a Commonwealth citizen, or cease to be an ordinarily resident in Jamaica. Those are the two exceptions. So if your name appears on the list, you can vote. But if your name appears on the list and you're no longer a Commonwealth citizen or you're no longer ordinarily resident, you cannot vote. That's voter fraud. And this is for MP. Schedule 8 talks about local election, and it mirrors this. It says, if you're not ordinarily resident, then you can't vote. But I'll take it a step further. It defines ordinarily resident. And it says, essentially, it's the place where you sleep. It defines it in Schedule 8. In Schedule 8, it defines it.
So,
and go ahead, I'm listening to you.
So, Ratigan, the question came up, you see, one man that have 3 different houses and sleep at 3 different places, right? How can you tell him he cannot register in Westmoreland when he have a girlfriend in Westmoreland, another lady in Trelawney, and one in Kingston, right? How can you tell him where he's resident? Nobody's name has been removed from 2006 who lives overseas. Not one person. The last verification process ended in June 2006. We are talking 18 years now. That anybody who registered, plus remember, since that time, other people have come, right? When I was in Ghana last year, I met a number of Jamaicans who were still, some of them said, boy, we'll come back for the general election, you know. I say, you on the voter system? I say, yes. But them living and residing in Ghana. That is their home. But they told me that once the election called, they will come back to vote.
Well,
Names, you cannot take their names out.
Well, therein lies the problem, because if you start enforcing ROPA, people, you're going to have to convict some people of election fraud. I'll read you what it says about ordinary resident. And this is in the first schedule, right? It defines ordinary resident. And it says one of the definitions is the place of ordinary residence of a person is generally that place which has always been or which he has adopted. So he can only choose one. The place of his habitation or home, whereof when away from there, he intends to return. Specifically, when a person usually sleeps in one place and has his meals or is employed in another place, the place of his ordinary residence is where the person sleeps.
Yeah, it is defined.
If you live in America, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It is defined, but how do you show? You got to show a man passport for everybody to show that he is in America more than Jamaica?
Here's how you solve the problem. The EOJ has been lax in its responsibility to keep the list updated. As you know, they do it twice a year, right? They're supposed to go and do it twice a year. They used to do the enumeration bit where they go house to house. They used to do it every 2 years. And they said, no, we're going to keep the list updated every 6 months, right? So now, if they're doing, and one of the things is residence verification. And if you're verifying, maybe they don't have enough personnel. Maybe that's where some of the money should be spent. Because if you want to keep that list pure and beyond attack, then you have to go out and do your due diligence. You have to go out and make sure that people who are dead, they're stricken from the list. You have to go out and make sure people who don't live there, they're stricken from the list. But as long as we keep doing this, and then you mentioned that it takes a while to get this done, therein lies a flaw in the system. And so what I'm advocating is that we need to put more people on the payroll for EOJ so that they can go out and do whatever is necessary, because otherwise you're going to have election fraud.
But if I can say something,
hold on. Let Paul finish.
Ratigan, you are absolutely correct. But let me just tell you very quickly, and I won't waste time with this. In 2014, both political parties, as an ECJ commissioner, agreed to the re-verification. The law says that when you complete, it has to be completed in all 63 constituencies, and it takes place after the next election. So you could start a re-verification now, tomorrow, but you could not change the list, take anybody off until the election after. when the JLP won, and this is ECJ minutes, the JLP in 2016 says, we don't think is a proper spend to spend $2 billion to do the, that's what was estimated the cost, to use $2 billion to do the re-verification. Although both parties had agreed, the JLP raised some legal issues which are real about this ordinary resident situation. And there are conflicting legal opinions about it. But you are correct. The list needs to be clean. That is how I conclude that. However, it needs to be clean.
I don't want you to move from that point, Paul. And two things I wanted you to take into account.
Patrick.
Right, based on where Rattigan just said.
Patrick, just a minute. Rattigan, you finish?
I'll yield to my learned colleague, Patrick McCarthy.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah. Based on what Rattigan just explained, right? And looking at the culture, right? The culture of Jamaica. And in fact, I want to say even further, the culture here as well. Because that is also a problem even here in the US, right? What happens a lot of time is that the culture is that usually the place that a person will first get registered to vote is probably the place where they grew up, where they're living at the current time, right? Like, for example, with me, right, my place would have been in the home where I grew up, right, with my parents and all of that, right? And with all the other places that I live afterwards, I never ever change anything, right? And if election come and I need to vote, I'll go back and vote in my original residence. Now, it makes the whole matter of ordinary residence, right? It disqualifies that, because what happens is that people don't go around changing their addresses at random, right? They try to stick to the one address, right? That's one thing. The other thing is that in recognizing that, one of the things that has been looked at in terms of having an authentic voters list is to look at structuring the voters list around the census, right? And that way you have something that is more authentic, because that way you have where you actually register a person to vote at the same time when you're counting heads, right? So you have you know the person who is attached to the voter registration, right? So it's a factor which is not, like you said, it's not easy to discard people on the voters list because of debt or anything like that, because you just don't know. You don't know if out of the 4 Paul Burkes, if it's really 4, or if it's 2, or it's just 1, right? In 4 places. So this is what I wanted you to comment on.
Paul.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to finish. I had another question for Paul. I don't know how long I'm going to be here.
Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to know, step back a little from the law, right? I know you're a man out there with long years. So what 3 things would you recommend to improve the participation of the people in local government elections?
Okay.
What are the 3 big things? I mean, if the law is one, we can mention it, but you mentioned something about Kintyre, which draw my attention, where apparently there is some relationship to money and people, and I don't really know the details, but I would be interested to know what 3 things would you change to get more participation in local government?
Well, I really believe that Jamaica needs not just the PNP, a new politics. And we use this word very glibly and it sounds nice. But really, Michael Mann call it the politics of participation. Some people call it the politics of inclusion. For that to happen, there has to be a structured relationship between legitimate community organizations, like what was thought to have been the community councils in the 1970s, where a council has the right to summon, in a certain amount of days, their representative to turn up to explain what is happening or what is not happening. Any day that legitimate community organization has that right to summon their representative within a reasonable amount of time. Can't summon them today and want them come tomorrow. But they must within whether it's a 30-day or 60-day period, with 3 dates given to them by the council of possible convenient dates. They must turn up. Secondly, people have a right for timely information. You're repairing a road in my community. I want to know what is the cost, what is the scope of work. I want to know how the money that has been awarded to my division has been spent. It doesn't mean that the council doesn't get money in their pocket. But I don't think even with our councillors in the PNP, we only explain mainly to our party members, and very little of that information goes further. There has to be, whether all councils are required to have a website, whether it's put up by the government of Jamaica, the local government authority, it is verified, it is posted. And the final big thing, the political parties have work to do. The political parties, if they believe in local government, have to convince more than their supporters, but the wider population, that this makes a difference in your life. It makes a difference to whether your roads are clean. For example, many people in Jamaica, one of the greatest criticisms against the corporations and the councillors is garbage. The councillors don't have any responsibility for the collection of garbage in Jamaica. That was removed from the 1980s. But Jamaican people still hold councillors responsible for the non-collection of garbage, when it is a National Solid Waste Management Authority that has full and total responsibility. I see my council have to be calling them and begging them to collect garbage. But people are blaming the councillor. Yet the councillor is literally begging them, when is a garbage truck coming to collect the garbage in this community? So we have real problems, structural problems, political problems to deal if we want to fix local government. The PNP's manifesto is a start, right, in terms of change. But unless you really have legal empowered community councils, and Mikey, I want to ask permission just to speak for about 3 minutes what killed community council.
Ripton McPherson.
No, it went further than that.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first conference of community councils was held at Twickenham Park. It ran. People were excited.
Yes.
People were enthused.
What year was that?
That would have been 1977 or 78.
77.
But the second one was held in November 1979 at Oceana Hotel. We never had space. We had to put people up at the peg. We just never had space. When you read through that book, I'm going to scan it and look at what communities were discussing: technology, community enterprise organization, employment. It was not about PNP or JLP. It had brought PNP and JLP people in one forum to deal with community development. Then there was that NEC meeting. And let me tell you how the main parts of that discussion went. Roy McGann got up in that NEC meeting and said that the chairman of the Maryland Community Council is a Labourite, right? And do you want that Labourites are the one who start determining how bushing is given out? And people said, no, Do you want labor right to be the one to determine? And Russian Thompson was there defending him. And PNP MPs, there's a word, it's not a four-letter word. They don't like it. Divestment or devolution. They don't like those words, right? And they saw the Buller give out work, this being a consultative process. But the bill actually went to Parliament, a bill to enact community council. It went to Parliament in just the same day Parliament was being paroled, a bill to enact community councils. And of course, as Siaga was saying, this was the Committee for the Defense of the Revolutions, the CDR, that took place in Cuba, that the PNP was building. The CEOs had started, the community enterprise organized, goat farms, supermarket, garage, all those were destroyed after the election. And unfortunately, PNP in winning in 1989 under Michael Manley dropped the agenda of community councils, dropped the agenda of worker participation, and many of those things that were not any radical socialist reforms, just democratic opportunities for inclusion, right? The student councils could not be turned back, but they eventually took off the auxiliary staff from the student councils, and the students themselves are not invited to many of them, and there's no penalization. When I became chairman of Winard Road Primary and Junior High School, I had to ask, where are the student reps? They said, I'm discussing sensitive matters, teachers, this, that. But so there has been a reversal, and there is no inclusion, John, or very little. If you're not in the party that has won the division and in that inner circle, the wider public is not included in the decision-making process, not even proper consultation.
Paul, some of us look at the low turnout and wonder if our democracy is in trouble. As a result, we feel that proportional representation would be a good model to encourage greater participation, greater representation. I wouldn't mind hearing your voice, get your views on that. Proportional representation, changing from what we have now to one that is more inclusive.
I don't know if it's more inclusive, but I believe in it. Even the Senate will be proportionally elected, because it is the only way third parties are going to get into that crack to be able to have a representative. So theoretically, a third party could get 2,000 votes in every constituency now. That will be over 120,000 votes. But 2,000 votes can't win your constituency. That means there are 120,000 Jamaicans who have voted for you. But when you look at the House of Representatives, you don't have one person in there. That cannot be inclusion. That cannot be participation. That cannot be democracy. So there has to be a proportional platform to allow new parties and to give independent candidates some hope of making a difference in the political system. I'm fully for it.
Historically, what you see in such cases in societies like Jamaica is that they form alliances with the major parties, and that actually just nullifies the whole purpose of it.
What, proportional representation?
Yes.
I disagree.
I'm telling you what has happened across the world.
Yeah, but if you look at
nothing happened in Jamaica is unique, Nothing you see happening in Jamaica is unique to Jamaica. And I'm saying to you that when it comes to those ideas, what usually results is that they form alliances with the major party, because that is what still give them the voice. Because without that, they couldn't, for example, bring a bill to the floor, right, and have it go anywhere, right? Without alliances.
I don't think that because they have no chance of representation, because there's not proportional representation, they are being excluded, although theoretically they could.
No, I'm not saying they should be. That's not what I'm saying, though. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that,
Patrick,
you know, the practice, what the practice has been.
Patrick, if both parties won 29 constituencies, which would make 58, right? Or one even 130 and 129. And there was an independent party with 3 or 4. Obviously, they could not govern by themselves. They would not have a majority with 4. They have to decide which of the 2 parties they are going to go in an alliance with. It's either you go to the PNP that has 29 and that carries PNP up to 33 and leaves the JLP with 30, or you go with the JLP at 30 and that comes to 34 and leave PNP with 29, or vice versa. Whatever
Absolutely.
it is, if you win 3 or 4 constituencies and the other seats are split almost equally between the PNP and JLP, what are you going to do? Your 4 seats can make you be prime minister.
Absolutely. That's the point I'm making. You just explained the very point I just made.
But that is politics. That is Italy.
Yeah, but it's not a solution. I'm saying that it was raised, Michael raised it in terms of a proposal as a solution. And I'm saying that it's not a solution. It can never be a solution.
Except
right? For those very reasons.
Except, Patrick, some of those third parties that won 4 seats, next time win 12, next time win 25, and they grow and they become major parties, right? They become major parties. And it's hard, but it happens. But I'm just going with John. All I know, we have to search for the solutions to interest more Jamaicans to be part of the process. And part of it is not just a political problem, it's a structural problem. To not just to say that elected representatives are held accountable. That needs to be defined by law, right? That needs to be defined by law.
What about the money? The way that candidates would get money to elect themselves, or the party to elect them. Can you say a little bit? You mentioned where's that community? Kintyre.
It's not Kintyre alone.
Right.
Increasingly since 2016, but before, buying of votes has become a growing phenomenon. I was told by a policeman after there's a video showing people collecting money after they've voted. And I am told that the law says that that man cannot be arrested. If somebody after they have voted come and say, boy, I want a lunch money, you know, I need a bus fare. I came in from country to vote. I lose a day's work because I voted. And you decide to be generous and say, okay, here's 2,000 for lunch money. Boy, take taxi, go back home. Here's another 2,000. They say you lose your work and you lose your work. Here's 3,000. And round it up and give him 10,000. That is not what I am told. I have not checked out the legal thing. Perhaps Rattigan can check that law. But
I am checking.
It says that, listen to me, bar is not supposed to be an election day, you know. I say bar open, you know. Right? And there's yet another thing. A lot of people who work are told that when they leave them work, they now get paid. Right? And this happened again. And somebody said to me, why, tell me, you can't afford to lose him their pay and make him boss angry then. So the government is going to have to decide whether workplaces outside of essential services have to lock at midday. Whether people go and vote and use the time is another thing. But people have to be given time off to vote. And a lot of people have that challenge. When you are a helper working at somebody's house, right? And you're accustomed to get your salary, and you go to a person, and the person probably see you come from a community that is not aligned with how you think you want to vote. You say this man, if you work half day, you're only getting half day pay. There are some economic realities that face people who are vulnerable.
Correct.
It might not be much, but it happens. And it happens far too much.
So how would that be overcome? I
I don't
thought
know,
Kenya was a good example. It seemed like it was a bad example when you mentioned it.
No, but I can tell you, we had somebody coming in from Westmoreland to vote in Norman Gardens on election day. And we refunded the person their bus fare. That is a legitimate, open, transparent, ethical reimbursal. Nothing improper about it.
Ratigan?
Testing. All right. Under ROPA 91, if you're right, if the person votes and then compensation or reimbursement is made, you're right. There is no crime of bribery. However, if it's communicated to the person that you come, you vote, and we'll reimburse you, that's a violation. So if there's a discussion before the voting, or they said during the voting process, then there certainly is a violation under Section 91. But let me go back.
And remember, Ratigan, the person who is having that discussion with you is not the person going to pay. You know. I come to you and say, Ratigan, we need a vote, you know. Right? We can do a thing for you, you know. We can give you 5,000 or 10,000. You and I have that discussion. But I'm not the person handing you any money, you know.
Well, who would be guilty? The person making the offer and the person making the payment. And by the way,
you'd have to be taping me. You'd have to be taping me.
And by the way, under Section 91, I have to go look for it, the person who receives the money is also guilty of bribery. So the person, because the person who gives it and the person who accepts it. But the problem in Jamaica, and I'm seeing it on a daily basis as I prepare for my program and programs like this program, is that we need to revise and tweak some of the laws. But the laws are there on the books. The matter is enforcement. That's the problem. We don't enforce them, and because we don't enforce them over time, they're normalized. We just accept them and just say, "I saw the thing go," right? But let me just ask you a quick question, and it goes to proportional representation. In the diaspora, it's claimed that there are more people living outside of Jamaica than within the borders of Jamaica. A lot of them are eligible to vote. A lot of them are registered to vote. And when I say people, we're talking about Jamaicans and their progeny. So we're talking about children and grandchildren. Do you think, based on the fact that you said, okay, you agree with proportional representation, that the folks living overseas, that they too should have a say as far as proportional representation is concerned in the governing and the government of...
Only those born in Jamaica, not children and grandchildren. There has to be a line drawn. If the child comes back and applies for Jamaican citizenship, right, which he or she is entitled to as the son of a Jamaican, then yes. But only Jamaican citizens. In other words, many people have Jamaican parents and they are eligible for Jamaican citizenship. Eligible, but they are not Jamaican citizens. So once, I believe they should be allowed to vote if they have the interest in their country, they want to vote. Now, what people are afraid of is electronic voting. That is where our problem, right? How would they actually vote? How would the Jamaicans in Ghana vote? How would the Jamaicans in Thailand vote? How would the Jamaicans in Japan vote? What mechanism would ensure the integrity? Because we come from a history where we used to stuff ballot boxes and teeth ballot box. This is
Right.
Jamaica.
That is in fact the problem, because what happens is that, and this is something I say every week, right? When a system is flawed, there's no correcting it. There's no correcting the flawed system. It can only be changed, right? And therein lies the problem with Jamaica, right? The electoral system, right, is terribly flawed, terribly. And like you said, it also is compounded by a history of fraud, right? So there's no adjustments you can make to correct that. You have to come up with something new, right? Something untried, something where people can understand, because that is the biggest thing that turns people off. The fact that they don't understand anything about the system itself, right? And therefore they have no confidence in it, right? They don't think the vote matter. That's the problem.
Patrick, I disagree with you. I disagree with you about terribly flawed. Let me tell you why. When you go on the voters list in Jamaica, there are representatives of any party who wants to go, but certainly two political parties are paid to go to the point where you live and make sure you are there. An ID is given to you. When you go into the voting station, with or without an ID, the agents, all the candidates, get what they call a picture list. So even if you don't have your ID, they get this picture list. Then there's what I don't know why they call it a black book, but it's really a data book, where the presenter, that your brother can resemble, can ask you, what is your date of birth, where you're born, what is your occupation, all of that. So the bogus voting has been, let me tell you, has been really eliminated. I mean, a big 17-year-old can go in at age 17 and say, I want to vote. And they don't ask him for his birth certificate or ask her for a birth certificate and get on the voters list before they reach 18. That is really the only flaw that takes place. The flaw we're talking about is once you're on the voters list, how do you clean the voters list? That is where the system is flawed. The bogus voting has cut out, That is why you have 29%, Because there was bogus voting, I can tell you, you'll be going at 60%. No more votes are ballot boxes are being voted out 100%.
You just confirm what I said. You just confirm what you said, because you just explained.
Patrick, allow him to finish, please.
Patrick, what I'm saying, there are flaws, but when you start off and say terrible flaw, the big problem is how you get to keep a clean voters list. Rattigan has read the rules. Part of it is enforcement. People come back, and if your name goes off the list and you come back to Jamaica and you say, I am coming back to live in Jamaica, I'm a Jamaican, and this is where I live, they have to, by law, put you back on the list. You cannot deny. Any of you come back home right now who are not on the list and say, I have come back to live in Jamaica. You don't have to even tell them that. You don't have to tell them that. They're going to take your fingerprints, and for your fingerprints don't match anywhere else in the island, right? You go on the voters list. So
Yep.
the flaw is not, we have one of the better systems in the world, one of the better systems, because when people come to vote, we know you can't come and vote in the name Paul Burke. First of all, there's a PNP and JLP indoor agent, and there's an independent candidate. That independent candidate has the list too, and low. Many times these people are from the exact community. They know people by face and name, right? Many times. Because we would not use you as an indoor agent. We get somebody who lives in Rennock Lodge to be the indoor agent for that box in Rennock Lodge. Somebody who knows the people, generally most of the people. We have the list, we canvassed before, and if the system was flawed, I am saying to you, you would have 50 to 55, 60 to 65% turning out to vote in the last election. But Jamaican people are afraid to put in bogus vote if they can get away with it.
Rattigan, you, before Patrick interrupt you, you were making a point. You want to continue?
Yeah, well, I was saying that you get Jamaican citizenship through three ways: marriage, descent, and birth. Now, Paul is right that you have to register. You're eligible to become a citizen. You have to register. You have to apply if you're trying to acquire citizenship through descent or through marriage. But birth, it's self-explanatory. You have your birth certificate, and that's that. So I was going to take the point a bit further because I'm arguing on behalf of the diaspora, and I'm saying, listen, I think it's a disenfranchisement of one's right to vote if there is no mechanism.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please? You think it is?
Oh, a disenfranchisement of one's right to vote if there's no mechanism in place for one who lives abroad to vote abroad. What that means, if you don't have the plane fare and whatever else is required, you know,
I'm going to close my window. 1 second. 1 second.
Continue, Rattigan.
Yeah, well, he has to hear from Paul has to hear.
Sorry about that.
Right. No worries.
Was going along.
Right. So what I'm saying is that if you don't have a mechanism in place for people overseas to vote, and you're going to require them if they're duly registered, and you say, okay, if you want to vote, you have to come back home to vote. Now, if somebody lives in Japan, for example, I mean, it's not impossible, but it's a financial hardship for them to travel all the way from there to come to Jamaica to cast a vote. Now, both the PNP and the JLP promised the diaspora that they would implement mechanisms to allow voting overseas. And I've tracked this back all the way to Delano, what's his last name?
Franklin.
Yes. Yeah, he was asked about it, and he was said the time is not right. This is 2007. And he was saying, well, the time is not right, but I can foresee sometime in the future where, you know, it's something that we should take up. Since then, both parties have promised the diaspora that this will take place. As recently as December 2022, the Prime Minister said, yes, Jamaicans living overseas should be able to cast a constituent vote. But we still don't see that mechanism in place, and we're still being disenfranchised. What, as a member of the opposition and a senior member at that, what is the opposition's plan to ensure that that promise is fulfilled and that people can actually vote from overseas?
Rattigan, I have never been a member of the opposition. I'm a member of the People's National Party.
All right, let me rephrase.
I know, I'm teasing, but I'm not in any opposition. Never wanted to be in Parliament throughout all my life. Never had that aspiration, ambition, inclination, desire ever to be in Parliament. So I'm not in the opposition. I'm not a part of the PNP's leadership. I may be a senior member of the party by age and by service, but I'm not a part of, although I'm a life member of the National Executive Council. right? First of all, I agree with you. It has to make it happen. We should not have passed 60th year of our independence. I believe there can be a threshold that in any place where 1,000 Jamaicans reside, right? Obviously, you can't have a station open up where you only have 5 Jamaicans live. Maybe 500, right? Because in there you can find PNP, JLP, and independent people to be agents on behalf of party and candidates, just as in Jamaica, right? Now the PNP has gone a step further. Last year at our conference, 2023, we approved the Diaspora as a region. So we now have 7 regions, and the regions are now in zone. There's a North American zone, a European zone, a Caribbean zone, an Africa zone, and the Diaspora had a problem because to become a member of the party, you have to be registered to be able to vote in Jamaica. And they complain that many of them are Jamaicans, they visit Jamaica, they send money to Jamaica, they have family in Jamaica, but they are not registered voters. And the PNP waived that for anybody who is living abroad, who is there with residential status, right? In other words, and unfortunately, undocumented Jamaicans living in the United States at this time to join the diaspora of the PNP, right? Mm-hmm. Neither, that might be another problem. Would they be allowed to vote if they're there on a visa and staying there and doing whatnot, as a student visa, yes. If they're there on what they call the green card, citizenship, I don't know. That was one of the issues, right? Now, so should undocumented Jamaicans be allowed to vote, right? That I have never given it much thought. I am only saying that that was one of the issues that came up. I don't know how many Jamaicans are undocumented, but I know you have hundreds of thousands who are documented, and they should not be denied the right to vote as to what is happening in Jamaica.
One quick point, Nita, and then I'll step off the stage. And for those of whom would say that you don't live in Jamaica and therefore you don't pay taxes, you don't do this, you don't do that, and you don't do vote, I say to them, go and read the Constitution, familiarize yourself with it, because you will find an offensive provision in there, and that provision says, and the Electoral Commission, they confirm it, they agree with it, because that's part of their regulations. It says, if you are a Commonwealth citizen, meaning that if you come from Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, wherever, and you come to Jamaica, let's say you come to Jamaica on a 2-year contract, you just come to do some work and leave. 1 year after you're there, and 1 year you've established residence, you are entitled to get on that voter registration list. You're entitled to vote, but here is something even worse or better than that. You can run in the elections for a seat in Parliament.
But a Jamaican who is a citizen of the United States has to surrender their U.S. life.
There you go, right? But the Bangladesh doesn't have to surrender.
I know somebody very close to me to be able to go into the Senate had to surrender her U.S. citizenship. And I knew of, I'm not being racist, but I knew a white South African progressive living in Jamaica who would have been able to run for Parliament, right, in Jamaica, not born in Jamaica, but would have been eligible to run in Parliament. But a Jamaican born here would not be able. It's part of the Mrs. Queen business, the Commonwealth stupidity.
But
all that is foolishness.
and it's still in effect. And here's
And I think both political parties agree, I believe, that's what I heard, that it should go in the constitutional reform thing. I believe there's an agreement going down the line by both political parties that once you take the oath in Parliament to protect the Constitution, to serve the people of Jamaica, that is an oath that is important.
Let me just give you one quick scenario. Like, finish it up. Somebody from Sri Lanka, they come to Jamaica, 2-year contract. 1 year after living in Jamaica, they get on the voter registration rolls, and then they can vote. Now that person, the 2-year, the registration card is good for 10 years, I've been told. And so now they go back to their country, right? They go back to Sri Lanka. No connection to Jamaica. But let's just say that him just get a trip and him come Jamaica. And it just happens that there's an election, right? Him not come for the election, you know. Him just come for visit our friend or whatever.
My friend said, come vote, man. Come vote.
Yeah, him can vote. Meanwhile, we can't vote. So
Yeah,
people...
it is.
So people who would say, people who would oppose the things I'm saying to them, you have every right to oppose. And I respect your right to oppose, but oppose me intelligently. Go and read the Constitution. Go and read ROPA, and then we can sit down and have an intelligent, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. You know, it's just emotional. So that's my piece.
I find it rather strange that someone from Sri Lanka can vote, but a Jamaican who is labeled as undocumented in the American system cannot vote. You know,
Well, no Jamaican in the American system can vote unless they are a U.S. citizen or so. But
no,
I'm just
vote in the Jamaican election. You're saying
I'm just saying, Michael.
Yeah.
Let us accept the principle that sooner rather than later, immediately, without any contention, that all Jamaicans, however they have got their citizenship, born in Jamaica, or they have come back to Jamaica, or they have to come back to Jamaica, they have applied for their citizenship, and therefore hold Jamaican citizenship, entitled to a Jamaican passport, should be allowed to vote. Full stop. The question is, right, those that are undocumented, who theoretically are in the United States or whichever other country illegally, right, should they be allowed to vote? That, I'm not going to debate that here. That was one of the questions that was raised, I know, in the discussion years ago, right? It was never resolved. I'm just telling you that it was a question that was raised.
I want to shift the discussion to the leadership of the party, Mark Goldie. Going into the election, there were a lot of questions about him, his effectiveness. And from the result, one can say that the PNP is united around Mark Goldie. So what is your take on that? Is it a fact that he has consolidated his leadership position in the PNP? And that is what improved the result?
I would like to say that Mark Golding has grown, and he has grown onto a number of Jamaicans, including PNP people. Right? So that's the first factor. You will recall that his personal popularity has never been high, and he has done the work on the ground to make people get to know him. One or two slips here and there of things he maybe never needed to say. Within the PNP, there are three factors that have happened. One, there are those who supported him from the outset. Two, there are the people who accept the democratic outcome of the elections, whether or not they thought he was the best person to lead. And that group also supports him. But there's a third fraction, very small, diminishing, but exists.
Current crosses. The current crosses.
Yeah, man, very articulate, very vocal. Social media gives them tremendous capacity, right? Their numbers have shrunk, right? And they are still adamant that they believe that it's better the PNP lose under Mark Golden, he should not be leader, they have their reasons, etc., etc., etc. But within that group, some of them have taken a decision that although they are opposed to Mark Golden, the PNP is the better of the two evils, right? And the bigger evil for them is to get rid of the JLP. Not that they are supported. The thing that you people face with Biden and Trump, who is worse, right? That is what you face in the United States now. You can't be hugging up either of the two. Although Biden made a ratchet State of the Union speech and was forced to do his conciliation about 30,000 Palestinians being killed. Because him see what is happening in the world, him see the demographics, etc. So he gave away the goodies. But I think people have made up their mind that if there's a choice between Andrew Holness, most people in the PNP, certainly, I would say as much as 99%, whether they like Mark Golden or not, and his support has increased tremendously. Don't get me wrong, but whether they like him or not, they want to see the back of the JLP.
Question, feedback from
So
panel.
Paul, tell me something. Is it a matter of that small percentage, right? At dissenters, as one can call it, right? Who don't necessarily support the leadership or support Golden. Is it that they try to separate the policy from the person, or is it a problem with the person themselves and not the policy?
There are a problem with the individual, right? I will tell you. Some people have a problem with a white man to become prime minister in Jamaica. Some people have a problem, and I'm plain and straight. Some people have a problem with Mark Golden, who is part of the financial sector, run on capitalist principles, being the president of a party that says it is democratic socialist, right? There are some contradictions. Some people might and say, this man is not the right person to lead the PNP. Some of that group feels strongly that the risers contributed to worsening the case of the PNP.
The what?
In 2020. Worsening the position.
The word you said before, risers.
Okay. People who were part of Rise United in 2019 are commonly called risers, right? They were a group that campaigned for Peter Bunting, right? There is a group, it's a smaller group, diminishing. I don't think there are 100 people in the PNP, frankly. Some of them are not even members. I don't think they number 100. When I look to count who are carrying the line, as we would say, articulating it, speaking to it, I don't think they number 100, right? But many of them say this group of risers, and the prominent risers were Peter Bunting, Mark Golden, Dayton Campbell, Angela Brown Burke. And they hold those 4 individuals responsible to varying degrees. Some people say they were the main cause. Some people say they were a significant cause. Some people say they contributed. No doubt in my own mind that the division of the party contributed to how badly the party did in 2020. Was it the main cause? In my view, absolutely not. But it was a contributory factor. People have their own analysis on this. their own passion, and people say that Mark Bolden cannot be excused. Some people have gotten over it, some people can't get over it, whatever their views are.
So the question then is, what next for the people, the PNP?
That's
Well, the PNP has a vision and policy document, which is good in principle, that they are now trying to establish what is a philosophical blueprint of a People's Party. People's Party is my terminology. It is not where I would want it to be, but it is a step going in the right direction. I have had an issue with my colleagues for years in the PNP. As you know, I've never been a Marxist-Leninist, but I'm certainly a Marxist-influenced thinker, and is the most significant philosophy that guides my political thinking, right? And I mean, just going back, my first study group, which I led at 18 years old down at ITAC, and I remember the book.
What is to be done?
No. One step back, two step forward.
One step forward,
One
step forward, two step back.
Yes.
Right? So that is the whole Russian Socialist Democratic Labour Party debate between Lenin and Martov, with Plekhanov as chairman, right? And I supported why Russia had to have a Marxist-Leninist party and the dictatorial proletariat for Russia to succeed. Totally with that. PNP needs to speak honestly to the issue of race in Jamaica without promoting racism. And there's a confusion in many people. The fact is that the people in the prisons, the people being left behind in the educational system, the people living below the poverty line, right? The people who are most vulnerable are Africans, Black Jamaicans, Africans. That is just an indisputable fact. So there must be a race issue after so many years of slavery. And of course, there are some people of Indian descent in that 20%. But none of the other ethnic minorities are in that group. Not the Chinese, not the Syrians, not the white. Now, to speak to these issues frankly is not to promote racism, is to understand the context and issue of race in Jamaica, because you can't correct it if you don't have an appreciation of it. How do you have positive affirmative action, right, in this situation if you don't come to grips with the race issue? There is also a class issue. It is intertwined. You must speak to class. It doesn't mean that you're promoting class warfare, class hatred, or class conflict. But classes exist. You can't deny their existence. And if you want a solution for the people of Jamaica, you have to be honestly analytic about their problems. You can't just talk about for Jamaicans who are below the poverty line. Who are the Jamaicans below the poverty line? Africans. And we have to speak these truths in order to find solutions.
But one would say that, listening to you, Paul, one possible reaction could be that you're talking from both sides of your mouth, because the People's National Party is led by a white Jamaican.
I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with that. And I told people, I don't have an issue. I got over my racism many years ago, because all of us went through the 60s and Black power and see the injustices of Black people. Sometimes it is hard to keep straight, but you know on principle. When I read Struggle for a Birthright in South Africa, I see the amount of communists who were killed, locked up, brutalized, fighting against apartheid. When I was in Angola, and they're opening the Solidarity Conference with South Africa in November 1981. I'm at the Karl Marx Theatre, and I hear that the Angolan Minister of Foreign Affairs is to open the conference. And I'm there waiting with my interpreter, right? Who incidentally was a daughter of Alexander Nato, Iranian. And I see this white man walk in. I thought he was the interpreter to interpret the English.
Zuma.
No, man. Paula
No.
George. Paula George, Minister of Foreign. And I said, oh, no, a white man as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And she said, you need to know about him. He smuggled arms in finance people, in high revolutionary, even in the trenches with us, with them AK. So I know that there are individuals who can escape them racism. I watched some other prime minister, when they went into politics, marry black women, only when they went into politics. I watch a man who is a wealthy Jamaican marry a black woman nearly 30 years ago. And that's one of them high brown women that don't think themselves black. And you have many people with high brown complexion say they're not black, they're brown. That has reversed now, you know, John. Right? We all knew we were black in the 60s and 70s. Right? That reversed now. Right? So I realize that he's a Democrat, right? That's the first thing. He believes in democracy. He has certain ethics, right? And we may not share the same ideological pace or platform, but he knows that's a fundamental change to the economic system to give all Jamaicans a fair chance. The PNP at its best. And I said this to you, John and Michael and Leo, who I know very well, I know Patrick. If I had said, as president, chairman of the YO in 1978, that I'm willing to embrace social democracy as a transitional stage, I'd have expelled myself. You could not dare say you are defending social democracy at that time. But social democracy.
Openly.
We never defended social democracy. I want to be very clear.
No, I'm saying you couldn't say it openly.
We would not even say it at all because we did not believe in it.
Mm.
We were never believing in social democracy. We were very clear in the YO. And the PNP, in its principal objectives, defined democratic socialism as distinct and different from social democracy. We were very clear at the 40th annual conference of the PNP that we were not following a route of social democracy. We were going along a route of a non-capitalist path of development. That was the route we were taking.
So that was the definition for democratic socialist then?
It was, and it is there in written form in the principles and objectives. It is there in writing, it's not a secret document.
But it clearly doesn't distinguish itself from social democracy.
It does. And I'm very clear about social democracy. Social democracy is primarily a capitalist economic system in which they take surpluses and make sure that the social things, education, health, housing, are factored. And that is good for industrialized first world countries with low population growth. Social democracy cannot work in third world countries where people have been dispossessed and disempowered for years. And fundamental issues have to be addressed.
Gaddafi said he was social democracy, and he did it his way. That was one of the clear cases back then.
I read the Green Book at that time, and I understood where Gaddafi was coming with his culture and his religion and what was possible in the context of a strong Muslim society.
But not to get too much into that discussion, the other point I want to speak to is, in terms of the race factor. What do you say to what's happening in Jamaica now in terms of this rising land baron class, which consists of a whole lot of black faces?
Is a land baron class, or are there some successful Jamaican black real estate developers?
However you want to term them.
They're not a baron. A lot of people have been able to break into industries, owning small hotels, not the big 5-star hotels, owning businesses, made them successful, buying land, developing land, getting to real estate, and the business is done to make a profit. That is just an indispensable truth.
But that's a simplistic explanation. The fact of the matter is that what's happening in Jamaica right now is that the whole matter of land is one which is very much something that is being done in a way that is not justified. Right? The whole matter of land distribution in Jamaica. Right? The land issue is a big question in Jamaica right now.
Land distribution has ended. For the main part. That whole question is not just now. It's just not now. Tracts of land are being sold behind people's back. Some people suspect, and I do so, that there are big kickbacks being given to the government officials. I mean, corruption, and this has nothing to do with that. There was always corruption in the system. Don't fool yourself. But the level of corruption, and thieving is wrong, liquor thief wrong, big thief wrong, right? But big thief stop money from going to basic school, fix roads. I mean, yesterday, I had to send 20,000 to a man in Palmouth Hospital so he could buy back antibiotics. The hospital didn't have it. He's no longer an employee of mine, but he's a former employee. And the hospital don't have the antibiotics, and he needed it urgently. The healthcare system is another. You need to bring some doctors on to speak about the healthcare system. And until politicians go and use the public healthcare system, until politicians send them children to primary school, there's no fix. There's absolutely no fix. You don't want to get sick enough to go into the public healthcare system in Jamaica. Trust me. And at age 72, that's a concern of mine. I have known, and I have to knock on wood when I say everything there. I have no known illness, fortunately, but you're healthy one day and next month you'll drop down. And it's a public healthcare system. I mean, one of our councillor candidates last year, and it shouldn't have to do with contact, was in hospital for 2 days on a chair. Couldn't get a bed at UWI hospital. Had to call somebody who knew somebody to get to her bed. The system shouldn't work so by who you know or who you are, then you get a bed.
So what is the problem? Why is it the case where UWI is having a problem like this?
You made a system a little while ago, Patrick. The whole system is not just a flawed system. Healthcare is expensive. People are living longer. You have to pay nurses more, you have to pay doctors more.
That's a debatable point, though.
No, hold on. You have to pay doctors more, nurses more, technicians more. So you have to carve out something in the system, whether it's a sin tax on alcohol, whether it's of gambling, whether it's of whatever, to fund your healthcare system. Right? There are two systems that have to be funded, irrespective of your station in life. And that's your educational system, and that's your healthcare system. And the state has to find the ways and means, no matter how, that every child gets good early childhood education and nutrition, regardless. Because if you don't fix it then, you have the problem today, where many youths, their solution is scamming, crime, antisocial activities, robbing, because you have not fixed the educational system. So is that if I only know to fix the educational system as your number one priority, grow your economy, do your best with your health system, have children understand that the fast food stores need to pay tax. The Kentucky Fried Chicken and the Burger King and them people need to pay a special tax. They are contributing to obesity, overweight, diabetes, hypertension, poor nutrition.
What
I
about
have a question, Mikey.
hold on, just a minute. What about the cigarette and alcohol companies?
That is sin. That's what they call the sin tax. They tax alcohol, they tax, alcohol,
Cigarette.
those things that contributes to one health going down. You have to tax them.
Lassell,
Yeah. My question, Paul, is this: considering the context of the local government election, right? Knowing that we have a general election coming up soon, what do you think that the PNP need to, well, considering that there's such a large population of voters out there that are uncommitted and not participating in the electoral process? I mean, do you think that there's anything that the PNP can do in terms of tweaking its platform for the general elections to try and inspire some of these voters to come on board, or to feel inspired to participate in the process? And organizationally, what do you think the PNP can do organizationally to get its platform out there and get feedback and get organization in place to bring out voters for the general elections?
I'm not the best person to answer that question, right? But I have some basic views. As I said, I'm not part of that PNP leadership team. So I can't speak.
Just your views. Just your views, I understand.
But I believe we have to get back to ground politics much more. Social media is important, but it is not a substitute to ground politics. It is complementary. It is the icing on the cake. You have to go back in the communities. It is difficult. And it's difficult for a number of reasons. You're going to have to hear people's personal problems when you go there to try and deal with community issues, right? Before a man tell you that the street light not working, I'm going to tell you the same of him light bill for paying, right? But there are people in the community who are interested in community development. And you have to find those people, make a connection with those people, and do what you can, no matter how little, to show your commitment and interest in the community. And yes, you have to promote on social media. It is not, you're not doing it for the publicity, but, excuse me, there's another world of Jamaicans. If you don't see it on social media, it don't happen, right? So you have to cater to that group. More than that, you can't send me as a messenger to convince people to go to church. Come in and go to church. Some of our messengers are the wrong people as candidates. Unfortunately, there are too many of us who go into politics because we want a position, want to be a councillor, want to be an MP for our own self-aggrandizement, right? And some of our leaders really lack the capacity to go and have discourse, conversation in the poorest of community, respectfully with people. And although they may not have your quote-unquote educational level, listen with them, hear them, understand why they believe what they believe, reason them, and get back that connection. We always do that groundwork at the youth club level in the community. But I will tell you, some communities are not going at night. I could feel safe in many PNP communities out there till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. You have unpredictable violence. Then a man don't have nothing. Or we stand up beside a man, talking to him. Just meet the man for the first time, just talking to him. Hearing him say, "Man, talk to me." A man pass by and he's not accurate. He just a fire with a shot because it's an automatic weapon. And man said, "Boy, sorry, name, wrong place, wrong time." I don't even go parties in the communities at night. I when people invite me. We buy a bottle of rum and send it. Buy a case of beer and send it. Come in and know when a corner. I used to sit down on the corner and play a domino. I don't think that yet. In these communities, Rockford is at peace again. How long, I don't know. Right? That's a community I relate to most of all. A community I love dearly. Right? I remember when the war was going on in Waterhouse. Right? Dealing with them time, the marshal and salesman, and they managed to try to stop it, the amount of meetings we had. Right? When them wars start fighting, most of the people hurt are innocent civilians, family members. So it's hard to talk about to stay on the ground at night and interact in some of these communities. Am I not doing it? I'm not asking somebody else to do what I'm not going to do. And many of our political groups, people don't want to leave them house at night when there's conflict. And when you build a group, it takes you 2 years to build a group. And in 1 month, a group can mash down because of violence. 2 members get shot, this, that. Right? You're on the wrong side of the road. You belong to this side of the road. And the man them who don't fight belong to that side of the road too. So you mustn't come over this side of the road. And then it's not gold them fighting over here. It's not oil them fighting over. But them a fight.
Yeah.
You call it fight? They might kill one another.
So the question then is, we need a new faculty of thinking to guide the work that's necessary. And John has an idea that what we need to be thinking or talking about is a manifesto, a working people manifesto in Jamaica. John, you want to say some more about that
Well,
idea and how we can move forward on it?
yeah, I mean, it's an idea, and I don't know that at 6 o'clock.
No, we can.
Because, right.
But just introduce the idea so Paul can get a feel as
And
well.
Yeah,
I'd love to get a copy of it.
Yeah.
yeah, I can send you a copy. We have your email.
Yes, I have that.
You have it. I think I saw it. I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it. Okay. Yeah, I can send it to you. It's just, here's the concept. The concept is that the people are at a certain stage in the country. It's a place where we have been before, and in order for things to really change, we have to go through. You have to drop in some pothole before say you have to get good tires. You have to walk the road and learn the experience. It's not going to come from no talking, etc. But it's inevitable if a solution, let me put it this way, if some kind of change does not occur, it's inevitable that another upheaval, another reorientation will take place in Jamaica. The manifesto is simply a set of words about all of the main conditions that face the people in Jamaica. So it have education, it talk about community, women's rights, corruption, etc. Along with the economic, some kind of economic. The purpose of it is really to help agitate, to arm people headspace that wherever you are, whether you're a parent, you're a worker, you are living in the community, that you can embrace these things so long as they are things that speak to what you, the ordinary people, feel. Your issues. Housing. I won't read out all of them, but the idea, I have a section here which says racial rights, which is right to the point you make about blackness, because one thing that the Bob Marley movie bring out, and all of us who live in long enough, especially me, I think I must be the oldest man in this group, that when I was a little boy, and up to today, if I come back to Jamaica tomorrow and I walk into certain industry or I walk through certain areas of the city, I don't see the same color skin people like I might see in Waterhouse. You know, the poor, the zinc house still there. And the floor, where people walk in those community in the ghetto, some of them is just dirt, no toilet. So the purpose of this document really is an idea to help arm people regardless of where they are now. So we would try and put this together between us, as well as involving some of the listeners. It's a work in progress for an extended time, but technically it's a manifesto, even though we don't have a party. But the idea is to help mobilize the people to our next level. That's the purpose of it. And it would speak to all of the main conditions. And that's it basically. How will people embrace it? They embrace it wherever you are. If you're a worker, or if you are, you're just like you mentioned earlier, there are some people who feel that JLP and PNP is not much different. Them say, boy, why may I vote? It's not any different. Those people are not necessarily conscious to the point where they're saying we need a different. I'm looking at the comments here, and there are some people who say we need a third party. There are some who are not necessarily at that stage. And I'm not here to predict how the change will take place. or what form it take. The way it took place in the 70s is with Michael Manley, the WPJ, the PNPYO. The left had a direct impact on the movement, and that it formed an alliance of sorts to help bring about certain change. I'm not talking about a repeat of the same thing. But what I'm saying is it must happen. It's inevitable it's going to happen unless these conditions are addressed in Jamaica. And therefore, that's what the manifesto aiming to do. It's aiming to arm people towards a better Jamaica.
Any additional comments?
No, what
I
I
would
can
say-
do from me?
No, I'm talking about the panel, the members of the panel.
I would suggest that as early as possible, you share it with the trade unions in Jamaica and some other civil society groups and have a virtual meeting to discuss it with them, right?
I'm sorry to cut you. I will be absolutely favorable to that. Now, you are the man who can direct it towards some of these groups.
Lambert is recovering. Lambert is the most influential person.
Well, all right, that's another, right.
But I would work with Lambert. I would work with Lambert, but Lambert's on the man first name basis. Yeah. And he's almost fully recovered.
He is?
Yeah, man.
Okay. I saw him at a funeral. Well, I saw him I was streaming the funeral the other day and he was there. So I guess it's...
Yeah, he's not 100% yet, but he's getting there.
He's on the way, yeah.
Yes.
No. That's the idea would be to, like when you talk about the community councils, community organizations, because some of the document don't have nothing. I don't know enough about those areas. You know, I believe I added the diaspora. The diaspora, what should happen with people living overseas? You know, Rattigan have a clear notion of, well, I'm not sure it's clear, but it's certainly a more developed notion than I do as to how we can, and I took some notes from that conversation. So this is the purpose of the document and the idea of circulating it, getting it out there, building on it, on what we have. I think we should at least start by, you know, not at this meeting because it's past 6 o'clock now, but I think, Mikey, we should at least have one conversation to improve the draft, and then out of our circle, we try and get it into these other groups.
Can I ask that you talk with Paul as to those contact information?
Yeah. It's a given. Now that we have we have his email and information, we to put it forward. But I think before we send it out there, let's try and put some more flesh on the bone.
Okay. Rattigan,
it's very bony right now.
Rattigan, you have anything to add?
Listening and learning.
Okay. Any additional comment? Well, Paul, comrades, I want to thank you very much for this discussion, because I think it clarifies a number of things for folks who are listening, clarifies how the electoral thing work in Jamaica. And we're gonna continue the discussion because, like many, we are overseas, but we're still in the yard. Our love, nothing's going to break that love for Jamaica. So we're gonna keep the fire blazing, okay? And Again, thank you very much to the listeners. Please, I'm asking you, like and share this video. You should also subscribe to Waterhouse Vibes. We keep you up to date as to what is happening. Paul, thank you very much, my brother, for joining us today. Until next time.
Yeah,
Wow.
let me just say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my views. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
man.
Thank you.
In,
Good seeing you.
informative and frank. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
good
Yeah,
seeing you,
man.
Paul.
Good
Good
talk,
seeing
yo.
you. Good seeing you. But before
We leave.
we leave. When we go off here, can we just hold on for a minute after we go off here?
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Let me do that. I think we're off here now.
No.